Hey everyone. So I'm doing something a little bit different today, and I'm not normally one to do vlogging, but I wanted to kind of fill you all in on a process I'm about to undertake. I'm normally pretty bad about this, but I've done some pretty major changes in my life over the last few years, and my friends have really kind of bugged me about why I haven't kept up with that. So if you're unaware, if you've been watching my videos, who I am as a person has changed a bit, quite a bit. And I want to give you a little history first, and then I'll give you the project I'm going into. So first of all, my name's Nick. I grew up as that chubby kid. I always was the chubby kid. I was born fat with a big head. Slightly grew into the head, but stayed fat my whole life. But never to the point that it was debilitating. My grandma always tried to get me to run, to exercise. I was the nerdy kid. I played a 6-foot clarinet and instrument, 6-foot clarinet in high school, and I sang. I was in choir, and I was just that kid. I was fine with it. And I was that way growing up. I was always had fun. I never found limits by my weight. And then I did. I didn't find a limit. I just found my limit. I was going along, I was living my life, and I was going up, 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 and then every once in a while I would go down a little, and then I went up, 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 and then down, and then up, up, up. And then one day I saw a couple pictures of myself. And I'm not usually one to take many pictures of myself, believe it or not. And I just went, ew, I really didn't like what I was seeing. And I decided then I needed to make a change. So I started doing some research. I looked into intermittent fasting. I tried that out for a little while, and mixed results. And then I went into keto. And if you've seen my other videos, I do a lot of keto cooking videos. So ultimately I settled on a mix of both. But keto is what I primarily chalked this up to. So I went from all the way up at 292 pounds, and I plummeted down to 172. So that was a big loss for me. That was a huge chunk of my body weight, and I bought myself one of those fancy Fitbit scales. I went from 35% body fat to below 10. So big part of me, but those not the most accurate measurement of body fat, but a really good indicator of how I was doing. But when I dropped way down, I also didn't have much muscle mass, so since then I've been exercising more, and mostly with push-ups, and I'm back up to about 185, which is a perfectly comfortable weight for me. But one thing's been missing. I like doing push-ups. They're fine. I have a goal of doing 100,000 this year, and I'm going to do that, make that goal. I think I'm right around 13,000, and we're mid-February. But one thing that I found years ago that I really enjoy doing is running. I was living in this little city called Olympia, Washington. If you haven't heard of it, it's the capital, but it's not really huge. I lived right on the edge, and right beyond me was the Capitol National Forest, and just goes on forever. And the roads there, even not in the forest, just went on forever, and I loved it. I one day decided I was going for a run, and I ran a mile. Next day I ran 2. And then soon before I knew it, I was running 4, back and forth. And I realized, oh, if I go out to the end of the road, that's 4 miles. So I could do 8 miles back and forth. So I'd at least do that 3 times a week. And then a couple times a week, I'd go and do more. Got up to a point where I was running 13 plus miles sometimes. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And then I hurt myself, like all runners do. You go too big, too fast, and okay, not all, most. Statistically, most runners hurt themselves. My big problem was shin splints. One day I went out and I wasn't even a mile out, and I could hardly walk anymore. So I went to a running store. They watched me run. They said, oh, yep, you got some pronation going on. You need stabilizing shoes. Perfect. Spent $150, bought a new pair of shoes. I happened to be visiting family in California where it's dead flat, not like where I'm from. And I went for an 8-mile run, and I felt great. And then I got home and I didn't run. I was out of the habit. It's one of those great and terrible things that happens. You just get out of the habit and you just don't jump back into it. So the shoes went into the closet. I moved to Utah, and I like one night decided, oh, I'm going for a run. So I put on the shoes. I ran up the steepest hill in my neighborhood. Accidentally, I didn't know anything about the neighborhood. And I lived in Salt Lake City in the winter, which is just awful for pollution. If you've ever lived there, you'll know. And so it was deathly cold. It was smoggy to death. I have a bit of asthma and I didn't use my inhaler, and I just died. So next few months in Utah, didn't run at all. Moved to Minnesota later that year, and it's again dead flat. So I started running again, and I did okay, except that this time I was constantly attacked by thunderstorms and mosquitoes. So again, I didn't run a ton, and I didn't always do great. And then I moved back to Washington State again that year. A lot of moving that year. And again, fell out of the habit. But recently, in the last few years, I decided that I want to get back into this. So I dusted off those running shoes, got a new pair even because they were getting a little old, and I started running. And one thing about where I live is Washington gets a lot of rain. That's something you have to know. And this last year was a little more than most, but not too bad. But because we get so much rain, all of our roads have this nice rounded shape to them. It's for good drainage. We have good ditches everywhere. And so it was kind of pushing me off one side or the other. And my knee, particularly my right knee, always was getting a little twinge in it. So I got more specialty shoes, real fancy inserts, like I think $150 shoes, $75 inserts, and it just didn't work. I was looking up all this different issues that it might be, and everything I read said, just don't run on it. Just keep it until it's completely healed, and then you should be able to run again. So I went a whole month, and I walked, I exercised, I did stairs, everything I could think of, but no pain in the knee. I went for one run. I had it nice and easily planned out. It was a 7-mile loop. I did that walk 3 times a week. I could easily run it. 3 miles in, and my knee was screaming at me. It's like, nope, this is not it. So that was it. I'm like, okay, I'm done. I cannot run anymore. My body just hates me for it. My body does not want to run. I'm not that fat kid anymore, which I knew. I was running when I was 260 pounds. I got down to 230. I thought it was great. But I was a fat kid running. I was okay. But now I'm here, sub 200, and my body can't handle this. So I've resigned. I was done. And I was talking to some of my coworkers about this, had similar problems. And one of my coworkers, Jay, he says, well, you need to really just run with a toe strike, not the heel strike. I'm like, oh, sure. And I've heard a couple people say that before, and I never really got why or what made that special. And he's like, have you read the book? No. What book? So he says, the book's called Born to Run, and it's by Christopher McDougall. I had no clue what I was getting into, and I'm the type of person just to buy a book and go. So I bought the book, and he's like, there's the library. Yes, but I bought it. And I have been blown away. It not only talks about running, it gives a great story about how he started with pain in his ankle. Or possibly his heel, I can't remember. And how it led him on this huge journey about finding some of the best ultra marathon runners, some of just the best runners around the world, and what they had in common and what was different, and different research that was done. And not only does it cover research, but it just covers running, and it covers people so well. So I got inspired. I'm going to try this again, and I'm going to try a more natural approach to running. So I have a pair of 5-finger shoes, incidentally, that I bought at a clearance sale at REI years and years ago. And they provide very minimal coverage. They're very nice fitting, except on the toes. My toes are not the same as 5 fingers, but the rest of them fit really well. There's not a lot of padding, and there's not a lot of thickness. So my one issue with them is around here, there's a lot of gravel. I might have a little issue. Yesterday was the first day I slipped them on. I went for a run to the end of my street and back. Everyone who started this says do not do more than a half mile at first. Just let your body, strengthen up. Your calves are going to not know what hit them. So I did 3/4 of a mile. I went back, I come back, slip them off, start walking around the house, and I have a nice little burn going on my calves, just like a good exercise. And that was great until about 10 o'clock last night when I'm about to lay down in bed and my calves are screaming. They had the best workout they've ever had. And this was a good sore burn the day after. So I'm going to continue this routine for a while. And I'm going to start pumping up the miles a little. Of course, I'm not going to overdo it. That's my big one. If I have a need for exercise, I'm going to keep doing push-ups. But I found even those were a little impacted last night because not only are my calves sore, but my back is sore. Not like spine, like sore, achy back, but the muscles up the side, up to my shoulders and into my neck. All of that, all my alignment was changed. It's a whole different style of running. I considered myself a grandpa runner before. I'd just hunch over and I'd take little shuffles and I'd do that for 3 hours. And I thought that was the safest way to do it. No big impacts, just going slow. Didn't work. So now I'm just leaning into it. I'm going on my toes. I'm still not trying to be a fast runner. There's no intention of that. I'm running for the sake of running. I love to do it. So I just wanted to show this as a kickoff video. I have no idea how often I'm going to update this. I have no idea what I plan on doing as far as videos for this, but I wanted to document at least the start, just so other people can see. And if you have any questions, if you have any suggestions, especially about shoes, that's my big take right now. I'm going to be looking for a shoe without much padding, but with some good grip underneath, something solid to keep the rocks from poking through. 5 fingers I don't think are going to work for me just because my toes aren't the same, shaped the same way, but something with a big toe box as well. I have big wide feet. And then I'm going to test some out. I'm going to find a good pair of shoes and I'm going to run. Until then, I'm going to keep slipping on these 5 fingers I have, and I'm going to keep warming up and building up and see where I go. So please let me know what you think of the idea. Let me know if you have any suggestions, and give me resources you have. I have one book that I've read and I like it. It works. I've talked to a couple people that really have liked the method, but I need to know what other people think as well. So I'm off for a run. We'll see how this goes. Thanks for watching.